Some developments that have happened overnight, like we said, for Adani Green, and somebody who tracks this group very closely, Johnson, Deven Choksey, director at DR Choksey FinServe, on the show. Standard disclaimer, you're watching NDTV Profit, owned by NDTV, and NDTV is owned by Adani Media Ventures. Deven, thanks so much for joining in. Good morning. What did you make of this announcement? More importantly, that the promoters are putting in 9,000 crores to work.
Yeah, Niraj, good morning. Well, I think what I understand, I think from 45 gigawatt target that they've set for themselves by 2030. I think they already reached halfway through almost, I think with around 20 gigawatts under installation or I think commission. So this is where probably I think there's a significant amount of further capex is going to happen going forward. And I think as a result of two reasons. One, I think another 2 lakh hectares of new land which they have probably picked up for putting across different kind of projects which they will be implementing in a subsequent period of time. And also to deleverage the balance sheet. I guess I think the promoters are issuing warrants to themselves and capitalizing the balance sheet with about 9,600 odd crores. To a greater extent, I think this is a good move because I think the company is in infrastructure business, creating, I think, large size green power projects using solar. And as a result of which, I think the amount of money which is required to be spent into would require own capital, which could be further leveraged because of the infrastructure status of the business, which could be further leveraged. So I think it's a very clear direction that the money is being going for growth purpose as well as for retirement of debt purpose, which is a positive thing. As on date today, I think the company is on a EBIT of around 2,000 crores on a quarterly basis with about 2,500 crore worth of revenue book, which according to me, I think once you start implementing some of these projects, would start building further and start contributing significantly to the higher amount of cash flow. The beauty part of this business is that once the capital investment is completed, the cash flow starts coming into the books, I think, very handsomely. And that's where probably I think the ability to expand the business subsequently would remain very, very high. And that's what exactly this group and this company is doing. So yes, I think they are on the normal ratio parameters. If you look at this company, it will sound expensive. But at the same time, because of this typical nature of generating higher cash flow, which is getting redeployed in building the capacity where the roadmap is clear, I guess I think that's where probably you're likely to see the premium valuation continuing in this business, at the same time expansion for the growth purpose.
Deven, any idea about whether this debt raise that they have done? Sajid was talking about the total of $3 billion, including the equity and the debt part done, right? Some of it will be used for prepayment as well, I presume. But does this set them up for with enough monetary arsenal to execute projects for the next few quarters? Is there some math like that in your mind?
Yes, Niraj, as I was making a point here, once you raise the promoter's capital is infused by way of warrants into the company, the ability to raise further amount of debt money, I think, would increases. The lender would feel more comfortable because he's seeing the visibility of cash flow, which I just mentioned, that on a quarterly basis, if you are generating about 2,000 crore worth of EBIT, then in such situation, I think you are likely to see the higher amount of acceptance from the lenders to fund these kind of projects further. And as I was making a point, I think with this kind of cash flow coming in on a regular basis, with every incremental capacity getting into the employment of once I think it is deployed, I think thereafter you will be seeing higher amount of revenue and the profit coming in, which makes I think the discounted cash flow comfortable for the lenders to lend further. Clearly, it is seen that in this kind of infrastructure projects, initial years, I think they take a lot of capital. And subsequent period of time, I think they start generating huge amount of cash flow, which also one has seen in different other infrastructure projects that the group has undertaken. I'm not very uncomfortable with this. So the promoter has about 3.4% of the total equity under the pledge, with around 56-57% kind of the holding in the company, Adani Green. I guess I think this particular infusion of capital would help them in stabilizing and I think expanding the business in a systematic.
Okay, Deven, now I know you track some of these large businesses very, very closely, the Reliance Group, Adani Group. Just trying to understand last year, or maybe as we enter January, I can ask you this question that last year at the same time, they were hit by this Hindenburg saga. Now that the promoter is putting in money and large money to work as well, is it a signaling as well that liquidity issues, if they were perceived to be there, and perceived to linger, are they now well and truly behind? And is that a soft signaling for all the group companies as well? Because there are 10 of them right there, and 9 of them are infrastructure businesses.
Yes, absolutely. I think even during this particular full 12-month period since January 23, I think the group has demonstrated their ability to raise money, I think, very, very systematically. I think never ever they have given a chance to the lender to, I think, pressurize them. I believe they have been very smart in raising money from the investors, which they have done all throughout the year. And that is what is probably giving the kind of an assurance on the side of, I think, the promoters who are basically remaining highly committed. Having said that, I think most of the investors, how would an investor look at this infrastructure business? They would typically look at, I think, the roadmap ahead for implementation, and they would also look at, I think, the cash generation happening from the existing business. And that's where the investor would start putting in more money into this business. India is a typical story of next 10 years of infrastructure-led growth in different areas of infrastructure. And this group remains, I think, highly prominent as far as, I think, their ability to implement the project is concerned. So in my viewpoint, I think those issues probably have happened, but unfortunately, I think this has created some amount of fear also in the minds of investors. But over a period of time, I think they've demonstrated well their abilities to continue with the implementation of the growth program. So that is where I think one derives more confidence being invested into this.
Okay. Deven Bhai, lovely talking to you as always. Thanks for taking the time out and giving us some sense of these developments that have happened.